This is my 1978 Yamaha DT175. You may recognize it if you've watched this channel for a while as my $500 bike from the Cheap Bike Challenge. You may also remember that it met a rather unglorious end at the hands of this piston with the compression delete mod. Today in this video, I'm going to be restoring this bike back to its former glory on a reasonable budget. We're going to be figuring out just why this happened, taking efforts to prevent it from happening in the future, and going for a ride. I hope. Let's get into it. For those of you that are new to the channel, here's the abbreviated story of my ownership of this DT175. I bought it for $400 for our $500 adventure bike challenge. It was rough, but I was able to get it running by cleaning the carb and unclogging the exhaust. Through a series of misfortunes though, I soon learned that the main crankshaft bearings were totally shot. So, I split the cases and replaced them in what was a very quick engine rebuild. As a result of my haste, something certainly wasn't assembled correctly, and I melted down this engine in very short order. As the saying goes, there's never enough time to do it right the first time, but there's always enough time to do it again. So, let's do it again. Alright, so I wanted to try to fix this properly, but on a reasonable budget. So, I'm just kind of replacing what needs to be done. So, obviously, I need a new piston. So I got this Wiseco piston here. Honestly, it's really the only viable option for this bike. I'm glad I could get something. And then, I've also got an assortment of OEM Yamaha gaskets here, and more importantly, seals. I have a feeling part of my problem was that I had used some really sketchy, really cheap crankcase seals, and it's possible that they had an air leak, which is part of the reason why this bike blew up. So also prevent it from blowing up again, I'm going to put some richer main jets in this carburetor. I'd rather foul plugs than foul pistons. I got lucky on the cylinder. It cleaned up pretty good with the hone, so I'm able to reuse it. And then I'm going to play with timing. I have a suspicion my timing may have been too far advanced, which was a major cause of this pre-ignition. So the first thing I got to do is pull this motor out of the bike so we can rinse all the gunk out of the bottom end. I'm sure there's treasures of this piston in there, and see how good this rebuild goes. Let's get into it. Alright, now that this is on the bench, we're going to take off this cover, take off the flywheel, and then start digging into the inside. Let's get in. Alright, so the teardown actually went really good. Got this thing pretty well, all apart. Now what I'm going to do is clean this out with some premix because all of my melted aluminum's down there. If I really wanted to do this right, I would split the cases, replace the bearings, and flush the whole thing. But on a bike like this, you got to decide how far you want to go. And this is as far as I want to go. So hopefully this fixes it. I know someone's going to comment they don't like it, but that's every video. So let's go flush this thing out. Quite a bit of metallic treasure in here, so hopefully I got all of it. Let that air out for a little bit. We'll start putting it back together. Alright, so we're at the stage now where I need to figure out my ignition timing. Now, I was in a big rush last time I put this back together, so I just used the factory timing marks. I thought that was a safe bet, but I went back and watched the video of when I took it apart, and for one, there was actually only one screw holding it in at the time, but someone had the timing slowed down, right? Or, you know, the word I can't say or I'll get demonetized before. So when I put it back to the timing mark there, I advanced the timing quite a bit. Maybe that's part of why it blew up. Now, nonetheless, I got the service manual here. We're going to follow the procedure, and we're going to use a dial gauge. I don't have one of the fancy ones that threads into the spark plug hole, so we're going to get the cylinder and piston on this motor, stick it back in the bike, and then we can set up our timing. Let's get into it. All right, before we get too carried away, I'm going to go clean up this cylinder. I'll show you my trick for that. All right, when it comes to the pistons on these things, you're probably going to be tempted, like I was, to buy the one on Amazon for like 20 bucks. These are all over eBay, Amazon. Sometimes they're like $9. So I ordered one. I thought it might be fun to give it a try, see what would happen. And honestly, it looks pretty good. And like you hold it up, they feel about the same weight. They feel pretty good. But if you line up the wrist pin holes on them, the Amazon piston's way taller to the point where if you put this in the bike, the top ring actually falls out. So it's garbage. It's useless. Yet all these listings say it fits. So your only real option is the Wiseco one. And I spent like 180 bucks on this thing, which, yeah, it's probably worth it. I think it's made in USA, but still more than I wanted to spend. So just a tip, if you're trying to rebuild one of these, just skip the cheap ones, get the proper piston. It'll save you a whole bunch of time. Because I spent a couple months back and forth ordering parts, waiting for stuff, and nothing went good. But anyways, we just got the ring gap measured up on this Wiseco piston. It looks good to go. So I'll get my cylinder onto the motor, and let's see what happens. So on the reed valve assembly here, this rubber carb boot has kind of this built-in O-ring, and then that's supposed to seal against that. Then this goes in the motor. I have a gasket for here, and here this O-ring that's molded in is obviously supposed to work. Now, 48 years ago, it was probably good. Now I can feel the O-rings actually below the metal here, so that's not sealing at all. So I'm going to use some Moto Seal, which isn't RTV, by the way. Moto Seal can actually hold up against gas. It's what I use for case sealant. I'll put some on there, and hopefully that alleviates some sort of air leak that may have been there. All right, we got this set up. We got the motor bolted in. We got the dial indicator set up in a good spot. And now I'm going to set it as per the factory service manual, and we'll see if that factory timing mark's good or if that's why this bike blew up. All right, so we got this where we want it to be, and let's take a look. You can see doesn't quite line up with the timing mark. Probably a couple degree out. So when I lined this up when I rebuilt it last time with the timing mark, I was a few degrees too advanced, which definitely could have contributed to it blowing up. And that's why when this was previously rebuilt, someone had the ignition demonetization worded quite a bit. So now I'm going to make a new mark on the case, put the flywheel in, and we'll be good to go. But first I am going to double check this reading right here. Get back to it. All right, so stock, it's kind of hard to find jetting for this bike. This has a 150 main jet in it right now. I think stock was 140, so someone's kind of already gone through this process. I did get rid of the airbox, or it never had one in my ownership. Maybe that's why it was jetted richer. But anyways, I'm going to go from that 150 to a 165. And if I'm having problems fouling plugs, then I'll adjust from there. Let's do this. So I am trying to get the real airbox for this. I've just been picking pieces together on eBay. I'm not a fan of pod filters, but if you're going to run one, run a foam one that you can oil. It at least actually filters things. At this stage, the bike was just about ready to run, so I threw on some finishing touches before seeing how many kicks it would take. How many kicks do you think? 7. I'm saying... I don't know. 10. Oh, that's a good sign. The bike was running noticeably better than it was after its previous failed rebuild, so after a little fine-tuning, the only thing left to do was to see if this thing was a winner.
And just
Well, folks, my $500 DT175 from the Cheap Bike Challenge lives again. Hopefully it keeps running. Hopefully you guys keep watching. Let me know what kind of content you want to see with this bike down in the comments. Have a good one.